All right. So this video, I'm going to discuss the Ark of the Covenant, and all these Christian and Jewish treasure hunters think they're going to somehow find the Ark of the Covenant. And I'm going to explain why you will never find the Ark of the Covenant, not on earth, not in the ocean, and not in heaven, because it's not in heaven either. All right. Because there's some myths that claim that Jeremiah hid it in a cave somewhere. Some myths claim that an angel took it to heaven and hid it. Uh, And even the book of Revelation claims that an angel must have hid it in heaven because it refers to the ark of its testimony in heaven, which is not provable. So you may as well assume that it's nonsense. Because why does Daniel say something quite different? In the book of Daniel, it actually tells you what happened to the temple vessels of gold and silver, presumably including also the Ark of the Covenant. It tells you specifically in the chapter regarding I think it was Nebuchadnezzar's grandson or third nephew or whatever the case. He had a party, and to mock the Jews, he took the gold vessels out of the treasury that he hadn't already melted down previously. He took the remaining gold vessels out of the treasury and drank wine out of the vessels in the name of his false gods. And then God, the hand of God, appeared and wrote on the wall, "Many, many tickle you farson." The kingdom is divided from you. All right. And Daniel came in and interpreted the writing. All right. But what happened to the other vessels besides the ones that they drank out of? Previous chapters in the book of Daniel tell you that too. What happened to the Ark of the Covenant and the other vessels? According to Daniel, the Ark of the Covenant and the other vessels of gold and silver were melted down and formed into an idol in the shape of a male penis, which he didn't use that term, but if you look at the dimensions, that's what it is, by the way. But which he and the other three Hebrew children were required to bow down to by Nebuchadnezzar under penalty of death, which they never told you where Daniel was at the time this was happening. So either Daniel failed and bowed down to it, or else he's just not part of that story for some reason. But the other three Hebrews refused to bow down to the idol, and Nebuchadnezzar attempted to execute them in the fiery furnace. And then it tells you that an angel, not Jesus and not the actual Son of God, but an angel appeared and rescued them. All right. And so, for whatever reason, Daniel is actually not directly part of that story because they couldn't figure out what to do with the fact that either Daniel would have to be the fourth person in the fiery furnace, or Daniel would have to fail and actually bow to the idol for some reason, which we don't see that in the story because he's written out of the story, even though he was the chief of the presidents of Babylon, supposedly at that time. So anyway, according to Daniel, the golden vessels from the temple were melted down into an idol, and the Hebrew children were required to bow down and worship the idol. So that is apparently what Daniel is claiming happened to the Ark of the Covenant. So you are never going to find the Ark of the Covenant. It does not exist anymore, if it ever existed at all. And there's some hint of evidence that the Ark of the Covenant is itself a complete myth and never existed. All right. First of all, there's a problem with the fact that the Ark of the Covenant, to my mind, is a direct violation of the second commandment that Moses had just received on the mountain, not to make a graven image of anything in heaven, earth, or the sea to bow down to. Well, both the Jews and the pagans around them claimed that the Ark of the Covenant was either God himself or that God lived in the Ark of the Covenant, which is blasphemy and definitely a direct violation of both the first and second commandment. But that claim is made elsewhere. But I question the entire book of Exodus except the Ten Commandments because I know how to derive the Ten Commandments from natural law. At least 6 of them can be derived directly from natural law, and the first 2 can be derived from pure logic. The next 6 can be derived from natural law, and I think the 10th commandment is more subjective and a little bit harder to prove than the other ones because simply being tempted to sin is not itself a sin in my mind. But the construction of the Ark of the Covenant is just as much idolatry in my mind as the construction of a golden calf. Just because it had a different animal on it to bow down to doesn't make it any less of an idol. And then the stories about the Ark of the Covenant, especially the one where two supposed prophets supposedly accidentally took the wrong fire and put on an altar, and then fire came out of the Ark of the Covenant and burned them alive just for making an honest mistake. Is that love? Is that the God that you serve? Where you Christians, especially, and Jews, but especially Christians, you sing the song, "The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies, they never come to an end. They are new every morning, new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness." Does that look like the God that would kill you for accidentally using the wrong fire from the story of the Ark of the Covenant? Is that even remotely the same being? It can't be. So either that story is a complete myth or they were worshiping something completely insane. Does that look like it's even the same God at all? So to me, every evidence is that the Ark of the Covenant was itself a pagan idol that somehow got mixed into Judaism at some later point. But I don't literally believe much more than one word of the book of Exodus other than the Ten Commandments, especially the parts about the ark. Because there's no physical evidence that any of that ever happened. And it tells you, if you want to believe the Proverbs, it tells you in the Proverbs that a fool follows after vain persons, and a fool does not look into their goings, but that a wise person looks well into their goings. In other words, you don't just believe something just because somebody claimed that Moses said it. You're supposed to prove that that happened. The story of Jericho's walls being knocked down has never been verified by the Ark of the Covenant, has never been verified by real history. First of all, there's a couple problems with the story. The real Jericho that exists today is actually around 13,000 years old. It was built around 11,000 BCE, and they've dug up the foundations of every wall of the original Jericho and all of the consecutive cities that were rebuilt on the same location. And there's no evidence that Joshua was there for 7 days and marched around the city 7 times a day for 7 days and then blew seven trumpets and the walls fall down. Why are the Jews obsessed with the number seven, for example, in Christians? Because it's a magic number. That's witchcraft. That's not a miracle. That's actually witchcraft. That's numerology. Understand? So that's a myth that has no basis, just like the missing day of Joshua. First of all, the sun does not orbit the earth, so commanding the sun to stand still would do absolutely nothing rationally. And even if the sun and moon and earth did all stop and stand still with respect to one another, they would immediately start to crash into one another. And the day side of the earth would roast in a couple hundred degrees, and the night side of the earth would freeze and stuff like that. So you have to read this thing and realize that whoever wrote this was not worshiping the true God, even though it claims it's the true God. That is complete nonsense. I don't believe much of anything at all in the book of Joshua could ever have been inspired. If that had actually somehow happened, why didn't the sun cults all over the world record that the sun and the moon stood still? Why didn't the Chinese or the Egyptians or the Mayans or even the Babylonians record the fact that, oh, the sun stood still for such and such a day for 36 hours past the time it should have set, and so did the moon, and we all saw it on that day, and we're pretty sure that correlates with what Joshua claimed in his book. Why didn't they all say that? They don't. They make no record of it. So either he's bald faced lying or that's some kind of nonsensical metaphor. Why tell a bald-faced lie as part of a parable anyway? Even if you were trying to tell something truth, why make up a complete lie as a parable? So he's a liar either way. All right, I think I'm finished on this because I'm rambling a little bit. But yeah, to my mind, the Ark of the Covenant is a direct violation of the second commandment against graven images to bow down to. And it's pretty obvious that it's a violation of that commandment because both the Jews and the pagans around them violate that commandment repeatedly regarding the ark ever after it was created, supposedly. So either it's a complete myth or it never should have been made if it was made in the first place. That's why whenever you go to read the actual prophets, Isaiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel, they don't tell you that you're saved by the Ark of the Covenant, and they don't tell you that you're saved by sacrifices, and they definitely don't tell you that you're saved by faith. They tell you that you are saved by good works, not the Ark of the Covenant, not the temple, not sacrifices, not faith, not tithe and offering, that you are saved by good works. Isaiah said God hated sacrifices, that he did not want a sacrifice, that he wanted a broken and contrite heart, and he wanted you to plead the cause of the fatherless and widow. Anyway, I'm done with this, so I get off topic.